The Caucasus Campaign comprised armed conflicts between the Ottoman Empire and the Russian Empire, later including Azerbaijan, Armenia, the Central Caspian Dictatorship and the British Empire as part of the Middle Eastern theatre during World War I. The Caucasus Campaign extended from the South Caucasus to the Armenian Highlands region, reaching as far as Trabzon, Bitlis, Mush and Van. The land warfare was accompanied by the Russian Navy in the Black Sea region of the Ottoman Empire. On February 23, 1917, the Russian advance was halted following the Russian Revolution, and later the disintegrated Russian Caucasus Army was replaced by the forces of the newly established Armenian state, comprised from the previous Armenian volunteer units and irregular units. During 1918 the region also saw the establishment of the Central Caspian Dictatorship, the Republic of Mountainous Armenia and an allied intervention force, nicknamed Dunster Force, composed of troops drawn from the Mesopotamian and Western fronts. The Ottoman Empire and German Empire had a hot conflict at Batumi with the arrival of the German Caucasus expedition whose prime aim was to secure oil supplies. On March 3, 1918, the campaign terminated between the Ottoman Empire and Russia with the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, and on June 4, 1918, the Ottoman Empire signed the Treaty of Batum with Armenia. However, the armed conflicts continued as Ottoman Empire was still engaged with the Central Caspian Dictatorship, Republic of Mountainous Armenia and Dunster Force of the British Empire until the Armistice of Mudros was signed on October 30, 1918. Background: the main objective of the Ottoman Empire was the recovery of its territories in the Caucasus. These regions were captured by Russians after the Russo-Turkish War, 1877–78. The strategic goals of the Caucasus Campaign for Ottoman forces was to retake Artvin, Ardahan, Kars, and the port of Batum. A success in this region would mean a diversion of Russian forces to this front from the Polish and Galician fronts. A Caucasus campaign would have a distracting effect on Russian forces. The plan found sympathy with German advisory. Germany supplied the missing resources and the Ottoman Third Army's manpower was used to achieve the desired distraction. War Minister Enver Pasha hoped a success would facilitate opening the route to Tiflis and beyond with a revolt of Caucasian Muslims. The Ottoman strategic goal was to cut off Russian access to the hydrocarbon resources around the Caspian Sea. Russia viewed the Caucasus Front as secondary to the Eastern Front. The Eastern Front had the most Russian manpower and resources. Russia had taken the city of Kars from the Turks during the Russo-Turkish War in 1877 and feared a campaign into the Caucasus aimed at retaking Kars and the port of Batum. In March 1915 the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Sazonov stated in a meeting with British Ambassador George Buchanan and French Ambassador Maurice Palaiolog that a lasting post-war settlement demanded full Russian possession of the capital city of the Ottoman Empire, the Straits of Bosphorus and Dardanelles, the Sea of Marmara, southern Thrace up to the Enos-Midia line as well as parts of the Black Sea coast of Anatolia between the Bosphorus, the Sakarya River and an undetermined point near the Bay of Izmit. The Russian Tsarist regime planned to replace the Muslim population of northern Anatolia and Istanbul with more reliable Cossack settlers. Allied with Russia, the Armenian National Liberation Movement sought to establish an Armenian state encompassing both the territories liberated as part of the Yerevan Governorate and Karabakh regions of Russia, and the Turkish-occupied portion of Armenia. By the end of the war, the Armenian Revolutionary Federation ultimately failed in this goal, only incorporating portions of Yerevan Governorate into their republic, which now takes up the majority of the land area of the modern-day Republic of Armenia. The British worked with Russian revolutionary troops to prevent Enver Pasha's goal of establishing an independent Transcaucasia. The Anglo-Persian Oil Company was in the proposed path of Ottoman ambitions. which owned the exclusive rights to work petroleum deposits throughout the Persian Empire except in the provinces of Azerbaijan, Gilan, Mazandaran, Astrabad and Khorasan. In 1914, before the war, the British government had contracted with the company for the supply of oil fuel for the navy forces. Ottomans. The Ottomans had one army based in the region, the Third Army. In 1916 they sent reinforcements and formed the Second Army. At the beginning of the conflict, the combined forces of the Ottomans ranged from 100,000 to 190,000 men. Many were poorly equipped. Russia. Before the war, Russia had the Russian Caucasus Army stationed here, with 100,000 men under the nominal command of the Governor-General of the Caucasus Ilarion Vorontsov-Dashkov. The real commander was his Chief of Staff General Nikolai Yudenich. At the onset of the Caucasus Campaign, the Russians had to redeploy almost half of their forces to the Prussian front due to the defeats at the Battle of Tannenberg and the Masurian Lakes, leaving behind just 60,000 troops. However, this army had lots of Armenian support. It had Armenian generals Nazarbekov, Salikian, and Pirimov who stayed in Caucasia. The Russian Caucasus Army dissipated in 1917 as the regular Russian regiments deserted the front line after the revolution. By 1917, when the Russian Caucasus Army disintegrated, there were 110,000–120,000 soldiers of Armenian ethnicity. This number approached to 150,000 for the total Armenians for Near East were opposing to Ottoman forces. Armenia. In the summer of 1914, Armenian volunteer units were established under the Russian armed forces. As all of the Russian Armenian conscripts were sent to the European front, the volunteer force was uniquely established from Armenians from Turkish-controlled Armenia, or ones that were not obligated to serve. It was initially established as detachment units under the Viceroyalty of the Caucasus. These forces were commanded by Andronik Ozanian. Other leaders included Drastamat Kanayan, Hamazas Pesarvanstian, Arshik Gafavian, and Sargas Merabian. An Ottoman representative, Karakan Bastamajan, was also united to this force. Initially they had 20,000 men, but throughout the conflicts it was reported that their number increased. At the turn of 1916, Nikolai Yudenich decided to either merge these units under the Russian Caucasus Army or dismantle them. The Armenian National Liberation Movement commanded the Armenian Fedai during these conflicts. These civilian forces generally organized around famous leaders, such as Murad of Sebastia. These were generally referred to as Armenian partisan guerrilla detachments. Bofos Nuba, the president of the Armenian National Assembly, declared to Paris Peace Conference 1919 that they accompanied the main Armenian units. The Russian defensive line from Van to Erzincan was organized through these units. In December 1917, the Dashnaks of the Armenian National Liberation Movement through the Armenian Congress of Eastern Armenians established a military force. The corps realigned themselves under the command of General Tofmas Nazarbekian. Drastamat Kanayan was assigned as a civilian commissioner. The front line had three main divisions: Movzes Salikian, Andronik Ozanian and Mikhail Areshian. Another regular unit was under Colonel Korganan. The line from Van to Erzincan was organized through these units. It was mentioned that Adrianic had 150,000 men. After declaration of the First Republic of Armenia, Nazarbekian became the first commander-in-chief of the whole Armenian state. Others. Lionel Dunsterville was appointed in 1917 to lead an allied force of under 1,000 Australian, British, Canadian and New Zealand troops, accompanied by armoured cars. Forces engaged at the campaign. 1914, Russian Caucasus Army at Sarakamish. 1914, Staff of Armenian Volunteers, Kecho, Dro, and Armengaro. 1914, Ottoman Third Army with winter gear. 1915, Troops of Kurdish Cavalry.